It makes noises.
Okay, it's running. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for having me today. It's really an honor for me to be here. I have a little cheat sheet on my phone to make sure I hit everything I wanted to talk about, so I promise I'm not like texting if I ever pull this down in the middle of the talk. But again, also thank you guys so much for your service in here. Be that in the Air Force or any other branch of the armed forces, or be that as a teacher. I know we all kind of help out in our own different ways. My pop-up actually was in Iwo Jima, so in the Marines. So I kind of have some personal connection to kind of what a lot of you did back then. So again, thank you so much. Okay, so what I wanted to just talk about today is kind of what we offer at Randolph High School, and I want to kind of give you, I guess, an update on exactly what's going on in high schools nowadays. I can tell you that I graduated high school in 2008, and the things that I teach now were not even offered like in my high school. So nothing I teach today was available to me in high school, and I think it just really speaks to like how much it's changing and kind of where the focus is and why it's so important. So luckily, I work in a district who's really, really supportive of me and the things that we want to instill in the kids, a focus on STEM, and in my case in particular, computer science. So I guess I'll start off by saying is one thing Randolph's really done is they've developed a computer science pathways program, and this is a way that we can get students really, really interested in programming and in cybersecurity and in general technology awareness, I guess, at a very young age, and they can show a commitment to that throughout their high school careers. And then at the end of it, they can get transcript recognition, and they can kind of get scheduling preferences as they go along. So we offer like 5 different courses in this like computer science pathway that I was speaking about, and I teach 4 of those courses. So the only one I don't teach, and I'm not going to talk about too much today, is robotics. But then the 4 courses I teach, one's called AP Computer Science Principles, one's called Programming with Python and Java, one's called AP Computer Science A, and the A doesn't stand for anything, so that's a question I always get about this. And the final one that we're actually starting next year is an app development course where the kids can actually make apps that they can then download onto their phone. So the first one, AP Computer Science Principles, what this is it's their first experience with programming, and it's their first experience with all the other computer science-y related stuff. But the thing is with this course, it's really, really super focused on programming for like the first half, and then we get into like cybersecurity and like how does the internet work, and like what are the things that go into making a computer in the second half, and it's all like super rushed. And the reason I'm saying that right now is because what I'm going to end this talk with, spoiler alert, eventually, is why something like CyberPatriot is so important to us at Randolph in particular. So we use that course as kind of like an introduction to kind of get people like interested in this stuff and show them why it's so important in the first place before they move on to these really high-level programming classes. So after that, the course we hope they go into after that is a course called Programming in Python and Java. And for anyone who might not know, those are 2 computer languages. And the reason we decided to make this course is any quick Google search will pretty much tell you those 2 languages, Java and Python, are like 1, 2 in most in-demand languages across the country. And what's very interesting about that with me is I didn't even necessarily come from a computer science background. I went to school for engineering, and about 4 years into my graduate program, I realized this isn't what I want to do in life. But a lot of people around me were using things like Python or even similar languages, and I, had to use them as well for my own research. And so, I kind of can bring that experience to my classroom now and say to kids, like, you might want to be a computer scientist, or you might want to be an engineer, or you might want to be a science person or a math person. Either way, this stuff can like really help you. So I kind of teach them that and introduce them to those 2 languages in that class. After that, they hopefully move on to the AP Computer Science A class. And in this class, we get super, super into the Java language in particular, and the kids have the opportunity to take the AP exam in that class. And one thing that is really nice about Randolph with this is, you know, we have a really committed group of students there as well. In fact, last year when they took the AP exam, we beat like the national average by like 1.3 points or something like that. So it's really like amazing what they do there, and you know, part of it is the interest in computer club and the opportunities that CyberPatriot gives them, and just the fact that they have always like loved video games, and it's like, okay, well, how do I actually make one of these now? That's why I end that class with them actually creating a video game of their own in the Java programming language. And so then the final course that I will be teaching next year for the first time is an app development course. So there's like different languages, computer languages, that you have to kind of code Android apps in or iPhone apps in. And so one thing that we offer in the students next year is the ability to kind of pick the language they want and make an app. And that app can be totally of their own design. We actually have one kid at our school right now who has already gone to the Apple Developer Conference. I think that was last year or the year before that he went to that. And he has an app that anyone can download on the App Store on an iPhone. And then we have another kid going this year. He made a simple like a game that you can also download on the App Store. So it's just really, really cool to like see what these kids come up with. And hopefully next year when we have a class where they, you know, even get a grade for coming up with an app, you know, that can spur them into some even more creative things that even I wouldn't necessarily think of. So those are pretty much our course offerings. And the other kind of half of what I wanted to talk about is Computer Club, which is the lovely royal blue t-shirt I showed you a second ago. And within that, the CyberPatriot competition that AFA 195 has been so kind to sponsor us for a couple of years now. So in Computer Club in general, we like to give the kids a lot of different options here. So lots of times people come to Computer Club in order to like say, hey, I'm interested in video games, like, is that this? And it can be, but we also want to get them introduced to the other things first. So we have like little video game tournaments, but when the kids show up to these, they oftentimes say, okay, like what else do we have to offer? So a couple things we've really done a lot in this past year is we've programmed what are called Arduino boards, which are little microcontrollers that you can do all sorts of different things with. I mean, from something as simple as making a light flash when you want it to flash to, you know, controlling larger systems. So the kids have programmed those this year. Sometimes kids come to us and they want to learn languages that aren't Java and Python. And the nice thing is we have older students who like to teach those languages, or they can get tutoring for my classes, which, you know, it does happen. And the other things we offer in Computer Club, which I said I would talk about, is these eSports options. So for those of you who aren't familiar, what eSports is it's competitions just like regular sports, but it's with video games. So for example, over the internet, these kids can play this game Super Smash Brothers against someone in California at any given time. Or they can play, there's all sorts of different games they can play. So this year at Randolph, we actually joined an eSports league for the first time. So the kids can actually form teams, and you know, you can even technically have tryouts. We don't really have tryouts, but you can. And you can have competitions to see who's your like #1 ranked person in this particular game, and who are your alternates and things like that. And then you can play against other schools just like you would, you know, a soccer game or a football game or something like that. And again, why I think that's so important is because a lot of times what gets kids interested in computer programming in the first place is the fact that they started with video games and then they say, well, how can I make my version of this, or how can I alter what's already here? Well, the way you do it is you learn how to program. And so what that leads me into is the final bit of this, where I want to actually talk about what CyberPatriot is for anyone who doesn't know, and why I think it's so important. So what CyberPatriot is, in its most general sense, is it puts kids in the position of an IT professional, and they are tasked with beefing up the security while maintaining the functionality of a small company's network. So the way this works is we're given access to virtual machines, virtual computers, for about a 6-hour period on certain nights of the year. And what the kids have to do is they have to like delve deep into the inner workings of these machines and figure out, okay, like here's something that's not quite right. How do I actually fix this? And then they get points for any security vulnerabilities they end up fixing. And why I think this is so important is, like I was saying, the only real class that I've even talked about any cybersecurity in is that very first class the kids take, AP Computer Science Principles. And even then, all it really is it's like, here are some really basic things that are like good practices. Here's how you make a good password for your computer. Here's the definition of what encryption is. And that's great, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really tell you, how to do these things if you're the person actually, creating this technology in the first place. So, CyberPatriot is really, really important to us in the sense that these kids can now, say, maybe I'm not like the programmer, maybe I didn't get into this for the video games. Maybe what I want to do is I want to prevent people from hacking into my computer. Maybe I want to get people off our network that aren't supposed to be there. And so they, form teams of, I think, 4 to 6 students, and they kind of earn points when they can. So this year, after you go through a couple rounds of the competition, you're seeded into like these kind of tiers for the state round of competition. And so this year we had one group of students in the topmost tier for the state of New Jersey, which is called the Platinum tier. And we had one group of students in the second tier, which is the Gold tier. And then we had a couple others which were in the lower tier, but they were also very young students who will be coming back next year and everything. So it's really nice to see that, we had enough interest for 4 different teams in CyberPatriot this year. And when you think that's like maybe 5 students apiece in each team, that's 20 kids who are getting a lot of cybersecurity experience that, again, I definitely was not able to do in high school myself. So I can't thank AFA 195 enough for like being willing to help us out with that, because the fact of the matter is, when this competition comes up, we have to register by like October 1st every single year, and we get these freshmen coming in who join Computer Club and they don't really know what they want to do with it. We can say to those kids, hey, you can join CyberPatriot here, and listen, sometimes you're not going to know what you're doing right away, and that's fine. The fact is, you're getting that valuable experience, playing around with these computers and working with friends and meeting new people who have more experience than you. And in a couple of years, you're going to be like leading our teams with these things. And you know what? We're not going to make you spend like $40 to be a member of this team. You can kind of do this and, put in the time and effort, and there's no cost to you to do this. So it's a really, really nice thing, and it gives them that like one thing that our current courses don't necessarily get them as it is. But other than that, that's pretty much the rundown of what's going on at Randolph in particular. And again, I kind of have looked at courses at other high schools, and it's really nice that we offer them. Not all high schools offer things like this. And again, a mere, I guess it was 10 or 11 years ago now, when I was in high school, I didn't have these opportunities. So it's really great to see what high schools are doing, at least in the STEM offerings kind of as we move forward here. Mm-hmm. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has. And again, I can't, thank you guys enough for having me here, and I really appreciate it. And I hope I've given you an idea of what's going on.
I have 2 questions. One hears that a lot of computer programming, coding is done overseas, China, India, a whole bunch of other places. How do you kind of make your students aware that what they're fiddling with here, particularly video games, may not be a career path? You can't just, the whole world doesn't exist on video games, and they could be replaced by somebody in Pakistan.
Yeah, so it's a good question. As far as the eSports stuff goes, I'll start there, because why we kind of developed this program in the first place is we realized that, okay, well, there's regular sports and athletic scholarships, but nowadays there's also video game scholarships and stuff like that. However, with this, we try to be realistic with them also. Just like you wouldn't tell a kid like, oh yeah, put all your eggs in the football basket. We don't say this isn't the only thing you should be doing, right? You gotta in order to even be a part of our esports team, you have to have a certain GPA as well. So it's not just like, you can't just have your life like revolve around video games and stuff. You gotta be a well-rounded individual. Now, as far as like, if someone's like, I want to be a video game developer, the way I at least kind of think about that is, if you really want to do that, you are going to have to learn the basics of coding and things like that. And then in a couple years, if you choose to pursue that career path, fine. And if that career path doesn't work out, then you at least have that background knowledge to go in a slightly different direction within the tech field, I guess. So I think we use like that kind of stuff to say, okay, if this is what brings you to the table of learning about this stuff in the first place, fantastic. That's fine. Just be realistic about what different paths you can go down in the long run. I'll tell you, even myself, like, one of the reasons I got into engineering in the first place is I had this idea in my mind that I wanted to build roller coasters when I was a senior in high school. Obviously, this is not what I'm doing right now, but it was the thing that got me on a good career path with a lot of alternative options in the first place.
Second question, the CyberPatriot deal, is that sort of like Norton and McAfee and firewalls, or?
Yeah, so that's part of it. I mean, there's all sorts of things they have to do. So I mean, I haven't even gone through all the little details because we can't help them during the actual competition. But they're like coding things in terminal when they're at like the highest level, or command prompt, I guess, since it's a Windows machine usually. They're coding things at the highest level. They're simply just removing users by click on the guy's name, and then they just kick him out of the network at like the lower levels. And different like complexities of cybersecurity measures give them different amounts of points towards the actual score. So there's stuff in there that like they can kind of get that pretty much anyone can do if you're given 6 hours to figure things out. And then there's other things that even our top tier teams don't figure out in the span of 6 hours. And it's just nice to have that I guess differentiated competition structure.
Why it seems it's too many corporate systems, banking systems, even the federal government. Why are they vulnerable? What are the holes? Why don't they fix them when they're designing it?
Yeah.
It's like if I'm building a dam, I'm not going to have holes in the dam.
Right. I wish I had the answer to that. I really do. I don't know. I'm sure depending on the situation, there's a lot of different reasons. I mean, there can be things at an individual level, like I said, just, bad, easily guessable passwords. Or there can be things at the higher level, like poor encryption algorithms and stuff like that. It depends on the situation. I wish I had the answer. Yes.
A couple of things that I've been thinking about. I'll just say what they are, and then you can comment. I was just wondering, are your classes more or less equal, male and female? Do the kids who take the initial course, do they tend to stay to take the remaining classes, or do some of them not? And then technically, do you have the right equipment? Because computers are always being so modified and changed, and you're keeping up with, at least with CyberPatriot, probably pretty high level requirements. How is that all working?
Oh, all excellent questions. Okay, so let me start with the male and female thing. So this is something that's always a work in progress. I'm not going to lie to you, in our higher level courses right now it's heavily skewed towards male. But what I can tell you is we do a lot of things to try to shorten that gap. So here's a few things that if I checked my notes I would have mentioned a little bit ago. So in that first course I was talking about, AP Computer Science Principles, Randolph actually won an award this year for female diversity. It was called the Female Diversity Award in AP Computer Science Principles. They were one of 685 schools of the 18,000 that offer AP classes to win that award. So 685, but out of 18,000, it's pretty good. So that's a really good start. However, and this kind of relates to your second point, we also had over 100 kids this year in AP Computer Science Principles, and then in, for example, AP Computer Science A, we have 28 kids this year. So there's a big drop-off kind of as you move forward, and there's a few different reasons for that. One is, like we say, we kind of use that first course as like an introduction to the class, and some people just realize it's not for them, and that's bound to happen. Now, you don't want 70% kind of dropping off there. So we still have some work to do. But we also think it should, the importance should not be minimized of the fact that we do get then 100 kids interested in some capacity in the first place. So the other thing we're doing to kind of lessen that gap between number of male and female in this is actually this year we applied to start a Girls Who Code club at Randolph. And I've actually talked to a few of the girls in a few of my classes about, you know, being advisors for this come next year, and kind of, you know, one thing we want to do with that too is also work closely with our middle school and kind of say, hey, you know, we have this idea that we want to do, but maybe they don't know how to do it yet as middle schoolers. Well, we have these girls in high school who would be great mentors for you. And so hopefully we can get kids interested at an even younger age, and we can also say like, hey, you know, this is a thing girls do. You know, it's not just the good old boys group sitting in a room, everybody typing on the computer or cracking jokes. Okay, so it's something we're kind of, it's a work in progress, but it's something we take very seriously, I guess. And I think there was a third thing you might have mentioned.
The equipment.
Yes, the equipment. Okay, so with regards to that, we haven't had too many problems so far. Sometimes we have issues of like, we gotta get this installed on the computer very quickly and it takes some time, but that's gonna happen pretty much anywhere. We use pretty much exclusively Windows machines in my room right now, which will be a challenge next year when we're doing app development and we need some iOS stuff, because Apple's very proprietary about all their stuff, and you got to have a Mac to do their development stuff. But I at least personally haven't had any like issues with the software or the hardware in my particular room. I think that's, you know, because it's so necessary for my class compared to other classes, because I know other people have issues with stuff like that. But I have not had any problems with that, really. Yes?
Is there any linkage with you to the Morris County School of Technology?
No, not directly. So one reason we really want to get a lot of course offerings at our school is to kind of have students have those opportunities at Randolph without having to go to that other school.
Okay.
So in that sense, you know.
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Do you talk to the kids about the relationship between computer technology and industry, like the Internet of Things, the hacking of computer, like electrical systems, where we're worried about the Chinese going to shut down the whole grid system, things of that sort? Is there an attempt to show them how computers and industry get together?
Yeah, so an attempt, yes. Could it be better? Also, yes. So that type of stuff, like there's actually a unit called the Internet of Things in that first course I talked about, the AP Computer Science Principles course. But one thing I would say right now with that is it's in that second half of the year when things tend to get like a little more rushed. And it's not like a matter of timing that I say things are rushed. It's just a matter of like they want to get all this knowledge to the kids in a very basic form very quickly. And I think sometimes when you don't go into detail about different topics, it's easy to kind of just be like, why does this matter? So one thing I'll say that I think will help with this in the future is this course I'm talking about, AP Computer Science Principles, is only, I think it's like 4 years old. And it's constantly changing. I would think that in the next few years there will be more of a focus on those later things and not maybe as much of a focus on the programming aspect of things, because we already have another AP course that's focused on the programming. That's AP Computer Science A. So at least I hope that's what happens in the future, because I don't think there's enough right now of that other stuff beyond the actual programming.
Because it sounds like the kids, they're interested in like gaming and things of that sort, and apps and things. But the real world impact of computing, it doesn't seem to be being taught.
Yeah, so...
I see that with my grandkids, you know.
Right.
Apps and games, you know.
So, I agree. The thing is, though, I think sometimes we have to realize we're talking about high school kids too, and it's, you know, you kind of gotta, I don't want to say pick and choose your battles because it's not like a battle, but you gotta kind of say, okay, you're interested in some aspect of this, great, let's keep you interested in this. And then sure, when you go to college and stuff, or after you've gone through a few of these courses, we say, all right, here are the things that, you know, you really should be doing with this, and here are the things that we really need more people to do this with. Like, do we need more video game developers? Like, probably not, right? We need more IT professionals and stuff like that. But, you know, I don't know if you can interest a freshman in high school by saying, let's talk about the Internet of Things, and let's talk about encryption and, you know, cybersecurity. Not a ton of them, at least, on the scale that we need. Yes.
Could you, I don't know much about CyberPatriot or the history. Could you speak on why the Air Force is sponsoring this or pushing it, or how long they've been doing this? I'm not sure.
You see his T-shirt?
Right, so...
It says 11. That's the 11th year.
Yes.
11th year.
That's exactly right.
And
Was it branded by the Air
CyberPatriot
Force?
12 is in process right now. You can register for CyberPatriot 12.
Right,
And
so registration opened for the next year, April 2nd, I think it was, right?
Yes.
And it closes in, I think it's October 1st. So
Why
we'll be
is the
pretty
Air
soon.
Force sponsoring this? Do they think this is a great need for the future of security in this country?
I believe so, yeah.
That's correct.
I don't know why the Air Force specifically, but, you
That's
know.
why they're sponsoring it.
You can't fly a damn airplane without computer systems.
Well,
is true.
is there a branch of the Air Force that is very concerned about security in the United States?
I think that all aspects of the government is concerned about
Yeah.
security, as well as all firms.
Right.
You know,
Recently, there was a town, I forget where it was, it was shut down, they were held hostage.
I think in Baltimore, right?
Yeah, Baltimore shut
Baltimore
down.
City.
Yeah.
The entire.
Yep, and
all
they're
their-
still being held
Yeah, they're
hostage.
being held
But they
hostage.
don't want to pay for
They
it.
refuse to pay
Good for
them,
them.
yes.
Right.
Right.
But they're stupid too.
So that's
the history.
That's the reason for CyberPatriot is
Thank you.
Well, see, all the whole economy, the whole economy is based on computer systems, and computers and databases and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And if they corrupt our databases and you know, shut us all down, well, shut the grid down, and we're toast.
Right,
So absolutely, it's
thank you.
security. It's national security issue. That's what I'm doing.
Just a comment, Tom's question about how many things are broken into. A lot of things. Usually it's an inside job. Every system I ever developed in my career, I built a back door. Sometimes I had to get in the back door. A good example of why things this way or whatever this Chinese outfit now.
Huawei.
Cat 5?
Yeah, right. I mean, they're afraid that they're going to build into the
5G.
dynamics of the electronics and be able to way to spot. A lot of times that's very difficult to detect. But the point is that it's usually an inside job. You get a disgruntled employee. It doesn't take much to you know, you go out there with one standard package. I mean, how many times you see updates going on your Windows computers constantly? All you need is one disgruntled employee or two that has an opportunity to just, at the right time, put some kind of code in there and let it surface 2 or 3 years later. And that's basically what we're faced with. You're really dependent on the integrity of the individuals doing the work. I'm off my soapbox.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Now we'd like to present with the Air Force Association certification here. Matthew, Air Force Association proudly recognizes Matthew Horner as the Air Force Association's Chapter Teacher of the Year, sponsored by Rolls-Royce and others, I guess. Shooting Star Chapter Teacher of the Year 2019, and signed by our President, William Facina, yesterday. Okay. And with it goes a check from the Air Force Association National for $250, and another check from our chapter for $250, for a total of $500.